I'm Connor Old, and welcome back to another episode of Old's Oscar Countdown, the weekly Oscar show where each and every week I break down a different category of the Oscars. I give my predictions, and at the top of the show, I give some thoughts about movies that are rising or falling. And this week, we're going to be looking at the Best Actor category. So we're still really early on in this series. These are still sort of early predictions. As we go closer, I may be updating these predictions. That normally happens at the top of the show, and then we'll have, a category each week, and near the end of the weeks we'll sort of group together some of the more likely categories, things like best sound mixing, best sound editing, things like that. But jumping into just sort of my thoughts up top, before we jump into Best Actor, I always like to talk about movies that are either rising or falling in people's estimation. Right now, I think in terms of falling, that would be Bohemian Rhapsody. As we're recording the video, and as you're seeing it, the box office has not come out. This is its opening weekend. I think that sort of will be very indicative of maybe how the reception will go, but as of right now, it has like a 52% on Rotten Tomatoes. Critics are very mixed on it. But the sort of standout is Rami Malek's performance. Before, I heard such amazing things. Rami Malek is fantastic. He's Lincoln-esque. He's going to get the Oscar for sure. But because he's in sort of a mediocre movie, and because there's sort of a lot of controversy behind Bryan Singer, I don't think that he's going to get a sort of a lot of a buzz around him. Especially because something like Bohemian Rhapsody at the Globes, where I think it could have actually excelled very well and actually had a shot at sort of building some Oscar steam, would have been at the Golden Globes if it campaigned in the comedy category. But because it's campaigning in the drama category, it faces much tougher competition from movies like A Star Is Born, or If Beale Street Could Talk. So I think that you really have to be, watch out for Bohemian Rhapsody. I thought that if it sort of chose the right things, it could go on to Oscar glory, but because it's sort of the mixed critical reaction, because it's not campaigning at the Globes, the critics won't like it, so it's not going to get critical reception, even for Rami Malek, I don't think, despite him being really fantastic. They may go with some movies that they liked with amazing performances, so that'll be hard to judge. I think right now Rami Malek, which we'll be talking about a little later, his estimations have fallen. And then, last week I talked a bit about First Man. I didn't think it's been doing as bad as what I thought. It's still keeping around at the box office. But the big star at the box office is A Star Is Born, keeping that number 2 slot each and every week, barely dropping 30-40% each week, doing a fantastic job, really just maintaining that. So definitely the commercial love is there, but the critical love has yet to be proven in terms of the Oscar glory, in terms of it winning a bunch of things. But speaking of Star Is Born, my first pick has to go to Bradley Cooper for A Star Is Born. There's a lot of great contenders. There's no one clear winner for sure. And I think right now Bradley Cooper is, if anyone, a really good solid lock. And I think is actually, if he gets in, a very strong win. Because, A Star Is Born is a very liked movie. We are all hesitant this year because we don't want to sort of jump onto the Star Is Born train and then get burned like we did in La La Land. But they're different movies, and I think Bradley Cooper, he's been nominated, I believe, 3 times before. So they like him for sure, especially for his acting. And this one, he has his last real prevalent movie was maybe Burnt, or American Sniper, which in 2015. So he'd taken 3-4 years really, and sort of went into hiding, made this film, and then came out into the media spotlight. And he's this director guy. He's this guy, who's talking at Google and things like that. And he's trying to make these sort of intellectual academic speeches, and he's sort of changing a bit of his brand. He's really talking about how hard it was to make the film, how much of a passion project it was for him, how he found Lady Gaga and how they connected. So I think that while they're actually going to nominate him for both directing and acting, I'm not sure if they're going to not give him the win. I think right now Alfonso Cuarón is such an amazing director, and such directors I think appreciate him so much for Roma, that I have him winning there, and I think Bradley Cooper gets it here. But if he doesn't get it here, I actually wouldn't be surprised if Bradley Cooper got it for directing. I just think that he fits more to the actor, because he's an actor turned director, that they'll give it to him for directing, especially because the acting performance is not subtle. It's not like, I don't know, I think Unforgiven, Clint Eastwood won for Best Director, not Best Actor. That was sort of a shift. This one is very much acting focused in a lot of ways. He plays a crazy heart type musician where you love him and you see that he's a good person, but he can't help but self-sabotage himself. And how he worked on his voice for a year, so he sounds just like Sam Elliott. There's a raspiness to it. It's not the Bradley Cooper. This is Jackson Maine. This is someone different. And I think that Bradley Cooper has a real shot to win, especially if The Star is Born sort of strength continues to hold out, and I think for right now it will. Alright, into my second pick, Christian Bale for Vice. Now you're saying, Connor, I mean, no one's even seen this movie. How do you know that this one's going to get nominated? But look at it. I mean, look at him. That's a close-up of Christian Bale, who put on like something like 60 pounds, total physical transformation, and the Oscars love this kind of stuff. They always have, you know. We want to say that, you know, Ryan Gosling for First Man is this really subtle performance, but this is the same Academy that rewarded Gary Oldman just last year for his sort of over the top in the best ways of, you know, looking like he gained a bunch of weight with amazing makeup and transforming into Winston Churchill. And the same way Christian Bale here, you can see in the trailer, he spans decades, some sort of a 40s into his 60s. Changing hair color, changing his weight a lot. There's sort of a fluctuating thing happening where he's definitely going through a full transformation, and Christian Bale's known for doing this. And I think Christian Bale overall, even though we haven't seen the movie, this will most likely get nominated because of when the movie's coming out, the campaign that's going to be behind it, and Christian Bale's just, you would think, great performance, but even if it's not a great performance, transformative performance, and a lot of times that's the only thing people care about. Plus, I do want to mention his last nomination came from Adam McKay's The Big Short, where, you know, some people thought maybe did Steve Carell get nominated that year? Oh, I'm getting confused now. Maybe he did, but I know that maybe some people like Steve Carell or Ryan Gosling more, but I know Christian Bale for The Big Short got nominated, which was, I know, a bit of a surprise for me, but he's been nominated before that. He won for The Fighter for Best Supporting Actor, so this one he's coming out in the lead. He's trying to push for that lead Oscar actor, and I think if the movie is really good and people really like it and it starts to build momentum at the end of the year, that could be very advantageous for Christian Bale. But this number 3 spot, I always say, even in Best Actress, and even Best Actor, it's the dark horse for right now. Viggo Mortensen for Green Book. Green Book is gaining a lot of steam. Maybe I should have mentioned that at the top. Hasn't come out at the box office, at least wide, just yet. And really, you know, it's a co-lead between Mahershala Ali and Viggo Mortensen, but Viggo Mortensen has sort of a family dynamic and subplot, so they gave it to him for the lead. That doesn't matter really, because they really like this movie a lot. It was the Test People's Choice Award. It's one of those movies that make you just feel really good, and it fills your heart when you leave the theater. At least that's what I've heard. I've never seen it. I haven't seen it yet. I will see it eventually. And I think Viggo Mortensen has sort of a lot of the comedic effects, which Peter Farrelly, the director of the movie, is known for doing, you know, things like Dumb and Dumber, and There's Something About Mary. There's obviously going to be a strong comedic element to the film, but I think he also brings sort of a lot of heart to the movie as well. Plus, looking from the images, you know, Viggo Mortensen hasn't played a character like this. He's putting on a lot of weight. He's putting on sort of a broad Brooklyn Italian accent kind of thing. But ultimately, this is a Viggo Mortensen, an actor that they really respect. Think of something like Captain Fantastic 2 years ago, where he got nominated for that in sort of a film that was very much under the radar, and, you know, a film that really sort of gained steam because of his performance. So he's really been nominated before for these smaller roles and something like Eastern Promises as well. So he's a very, very well-respected actor, and this is the first time where we're going to see him get nominated for a movie, you know, that he's really the main star of. He wasn't nominated for Lord of the Rings, but there's an obvious sort of respect for him. And I think that if this momentum builds right, and if Green Book is really as strong of a contender as we think, right now I think maybe Mahershala Ali for supporting actor has the best shot over Viggo Mortensen. But if Viggo Mortensen's campaign sort of builds, we could see both Viggo and Mahershala win for Green Book, and it'd be a nice night for Green Book. Especially, I can see this film winning the SAG Awards, especially even Viggo Mortensen. Alright, into my fourth pick, Ryan Gosling for First Man. Now, walking out of the film, I was pretty sure that he was going to get nominated, although he has sort of slipped in my estimation due to some of the external factors, things like First Man not doing that well at the box office, and his sort of overall subtle performance. I talked about it before, you know. You want to think, you know, the subtle performance will win, and that's sort of what actors want, but I don't think so. I think right now he has actually a pretty good trajectory at the Golden Globes. I think they'll reward the First Man pretty well, including Ryan Gosling. I also think that the SAGs, unfortunately, won't maybe... I'm sort of worried about the SAGs, that they'll maybe nominate a more veteran actor, someone like Willem Dafoe at Attorney's Gate or something like that, over Ryan Gosling for First Man. He's one of those guys where I wouldn't be surprised that he gets left off the list, but because of his sort of Globe schedule, because of the strength of First Man, I could see that him sort of slipping in. But First Man could be one of those movies that sort of falls in our estimation because it's not La La Land, because it's not Whiplash, but the film directed by Damien Chazelle, the Oscar Wonder Boy, you can't almost bet against it, and it's called First Man. He is sort of emotionally distant in the movie, but he has sort of his crying scene. He has the certain scenes that they want. But I do want to remind everyone, it was sort of unsure that Ryan Gosling was going to get nominated for La La Land. I wasn't that sure about it because Ryan Gosling is this boy face. People still see him as the romantic comedy guy, as the Notebook guy. Leonardo DiCaprio had to trudge through that for years because he's still sort of seen as a young actor, that he doesn't deserve it, that a more well-respected actor like Willem Dafoe or Viggo Mortensen deserves it. So my concern is that he doesn't get the SAG nomination because those are such great indicators. But as of right now, Ryan Gosling for First Man gets my vote. And my fifth one, which I almost moved to 4 because I'm pretty confident in it now, that being Ethan Hawke for First Reformed. This is sort of the indie hit of the summer. Ethan Hawke, veteran actor, gives one of his best performances. And you remember, he wasn't nominated that long ago, just 4 years ago now, with Boyhood in 2014. Plus, he's been nominated as a writer before on the Before trilogy. He's been nominated for Training Day. He's one of these guys where, like Viggo Mortensen and Captain Fantastic, there's always this sort of indie movie with an amazing star that gets one nomination that sort of slips in. And I'm a personal fan of the movie, so maybe I have a bias, but everyone that watches the movie really comes out with an agreement that that was really strange, and Ethan Hawke is fantastic in the movie. He's sort of... gives a very layered performance. He's sort of the character's sort of hard to read at times, and at other times he unveils the curtain. You really see what's going on in his mind, and it's unreal. And I think that Ethan Hawke is one of these guys that is well respected. He's had sort of these nominations before, and if the momentum builds, I could see it happening, but right now I'm actually being more and more convinced, especially with a nomination from the Gotham Awards. That just sort of strengthens my idea that the critics, the small critics, the online people that are going to nominate him, that are going to recognize Ethan Hawke, because they're always the ones that are saying, oh, don't forget about Ethan Hawke come awards time. He's fantastic in the movie. The critics won't forget about him, and I think if they sort of build that narrative that this is one of the strongest performances of the year, they're going to give it to him. I think so, at least. So right now, I mean, as I'm talking, I may put this up to 4 and Ryan Gosling to 5. They're really interchangeable just because of the rising and the falling. I think Ethan Hawke for First Reformed is a bit of a dark horse in terms of getting nominated. I think he will ultimately get in. Alright, moving into some honorable mentions. I got Rami Malek here. I talked about him a bit on the show, at top of the show. He's fantastic in the movie from all I've heard, but the film is facing some problems. So if they really like him and the film does really well at the box office, like I said, we don't know how that's going to work. It seems like a crowd pleaser. It seems like it should, but we don't know because it has a really tough schedule. I think like Nutcracker the same weekend, and then Grinch, and then Fantastic Beasts, and then Creed 2. I mean, it's gonna have to sustain for a while, which I'm not too sure if it will. I got Steve Carell for Beautiful Boy. Beautiful Boy has slipped in its estimation because of its sort of mixed critical response, but he's still really fantastic in the film, and he gets nominated for things like Foxcatcher. So watch out for someone like Steve Carell. Willem Dafoe is that well-respected actor that could get nominated for SAG and nowhere else, so you may have to be like, oh, I don't know if I should do 5 for 5. SAG's pretty good at it. Not always 5 for 5, but they're pretty good at it. And he sort of, just with the Florida Project last year, almost won, so don't forget about people's love for Willem Dafoe. And then Clint Eastwood for The Mule. I mean, it's Clint. That's all I can say. The Mule's coming out eventually soon. It could be that $1 Million Baby movie. To me, it feels more commercial than it does critically. Sort of an Oscar movie, but it's Clint. They love him. You can never underestimate him, similar to how you can never underestimate someone like Meryl Streep. So The Mule could be maybe a little bit of a dark horse, but like I said, no one's seen it, so we don't know just yet. that's about it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode. Let me know some of your predictions down below. What you think of maybe Rami Malek getting in? Is he a lock for you guys? What about Ethan Hawke for First Reformed? Was it a good pick that Bradley Cooper is going to win for A Star Is Born for acting instead of directing? Let me know all these things in the comments down below. I'd love to hear your thoughts. What I'm doing here is trying to create a great Oscar community where we can just talk about movies and what we think is going to win, and really make that comment section just a place that's sort of welcoming. That's about it, guys. I hope you guys enjoyed the episode, and until next time, stay tuned.